Hey, it's Stu, and this video is going to maybe be a bookshelf tour, but it's really me kind of going through like an enormous amount of pile of possibilities for maybe what I'll read in December, or at least put in one of my piles of possibilities for December. So hear me out. In the last a little over a year, I've read around 280 books, more or less. And of those books, some authors I had read before and were beloved to me, but most were new. I've also hauled all of these books. These are all books that I hauled in the last year from little free libraries, friends of the library book sales, or thrift stores, and a couple of hauls from independent bookshops. So I wanted to kind of take a moment to go through my library and to think a little bit about, okay, what's there? What is my approach to reading all of this? And one idea that I had was to read the second book that I've read of an author that I've read in the last little over a year. This voracious reading epoch that I'm on. Now, I do have a couple of cases of authors that I've read a book of in the last year, but I had read before as well. So it wouldn't be my first book or my first experience with the author. So I'll probably bring them up just as I'm going through authors for whom I have more than one book. I have had, because remember, you won't see the book I read in this bookshelf because I unhaul them all. So this actually is an active physical TBR, which actually just informs my either immersive or my hybrid digital audio TBR mostly. As I very rarely just read physical books, exclusively just to accommodate the kind of headaches that I suffer. In any case, that was a pretty long intro. Let me just get to it. We're going to start here in my A's. And what I'm just going to do is point out the book or the author that I have read another book by that author in this last year. So here we have Shimamanda Ngozi Adichie, Dream Count. And then here we have three Julia Alvarez books. And then here we have a Monica Ali. Dream Count is a recent haul, and I read Purple Hibiscus right before the beginning of summer. Yeah. I really liked Purple Hibiscus. I'm aware of some controversy around the views of this author. Definitely like the author's writing style. Was excited to haul Dream Count. So it fits to that category. I would maybe, be considered in that pile of possibilities. I recently also hauled and read Afterlife by Julia Alvarez. However, I definitely read Julia Alvarez before in my life. How the Garcia Girls Lost Their Accents, I think, for a college class in university, probably. And so where I read Julia Alvarez, and I have more books to read by her, she wouldn't necessarily fit in the prompt as I have it designed. Monica Ali, though, I have just recently read Brick Lane by Monica Ali in my Booker pile of possibilities, Booker author pile of possibilities, and that is her debut. And I believe Love Marriage is her sophomore, and I'm not aware of if she has more books or not. So, I feel kind of really close to having read and having hauled that, so I don't know if I would choose Love Marriage in December, but I'm not making choices now. I'm just going through my catalog and discussing pile of possibilities, and within the sort of like these arbitrary parameters that I put for this prompt that fits. Next, we have Frederick Bachman, for sure. We have John Banville, and we have Britt Bennett. Yeah. Oh, and we have Elizabeth Berg. Okay. I also just recently for the Booker pile of possibilities read The Sea by John Banville. I was distracted by its sexism, but I found him to be a beautiful author, and I said if I contemplated would I haul and or read another one of his, and I in fact found that book at the Friends of the Library sale, maybe the very week that I was contemplating that and got it. Likewise, I'm not picking now, but I don't think that I would pick John Banville in summer because it's both a recent read and a recent haul, like the Dream Count. But the Bachman, okay, I have 2 Bachmans. One I got at a Friends of a Library for like $1, and it's that really big one. It's this one, The Winners. It's a chunker. I don't see myself picking that, but I also know that it's a plan for a buddy read. Gonna read My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You She's Sorry. So that fits in the parameters of this prompt for the pile of possibilities, and it's also, tagged to be read. What did I say next? Oh yeah, Britt Bennett. I read The Mothers quite some time ago. I really liked it. And I think I actually hauled Vanishing Half, and I'm pretty sure that came from a thrift. I pencil in the front where I get them. I like the story of the book, but I'm pretty sure that came from a thrift store. And I think that I got it before The Mothers, which I got from a little free library. And so if I'm just talking out loud, like processing what I would pick, I think that Britt Bennett book, I would pick, I would pick in my pile of possibility. It would be very likely to make a TBR in December from the pile of possibilities of the second book of an author. Now, those are the only 2 books I know about by her too. So I don't know if there are more. I certainly haven't come across them, and I haven't done a lot of research on that author. Elizabeth Berg, I read a book just at the end of summer, a quick little novel. I can't recall the name of it right now, but the premise was a book about a woman in an iron lung who has a daughter, and it's a mother-daughter relationship. And I really like the exploration of mother-daughter relationships, especially this sort of pressure of women to be everything, period, and then to have some kind of a disability. And then the expectations of their child to be able to parent them, and society to be able to parent the child. I just finished a book like that, and it's something I really like to explore. That's a digression on that book that I've already done a review for. After I finished that Elizabeth Berg, I said this wasn't, my favorite book and or author ever, but it's certainly worth, if I found another book by her, I would haul it and plan to read it at some point. And that very day, I think I was at a little free library and I found another Elizabeth Berg book, which is the one that I have here. And for some reason, because I feel close to both that haul and that read, I don't know if I would pick that book. But again, I'm not deciding now. I'm just going over some things. So let's adjust a little bit. T.C. Boyle, I have 2 books of, and it's an author that I've read before, but I haven't read recently. But Geraldine Brooks, I read the history of the story of the book by Geraldine Brooks. I read it quite a while ago. I'm trying to think if I read 2 Geraldine Brooks books. Well, I can remember vividly reading one, and I have more to read, so I'm going to arbitrarily say that it fits in this prompt. And this historical fiction isn't super my jam, but I liked the story of the book quite a bit. And I think that I would save March, which is the Pulitzer winner for Pulitzer season, and read it either with Little Women, as it's the story of the father, or I have another Louisa May Alcott here that I maybe would read at the same time. Just rambling again now, but I think is it called The State of Wonder? I think that's the one. If I were to put Brooks on this, on a TBR from the pile of possibilities this December, I think it would be that book. Again, I'm being extra organizy for some reason. Next, we have this Await Your Reply by Dan Cheyenne. I also can't recall the name of the Dan Cheyenne book I read. It had shoes on the front, and in fact, it was signed, and it came from a little free library. It was very Midwest. If I'm not mistaken, it was like Ohio, kind of Midwest, and I liked it. Yeah, and so the fact that I can't remember the name or the premise, just the setting, and that I liked it, maybe as telling, but I have read a lot, and I have only just recently hauled this Dan Chan. I did pay for it. It was on one of those really large hauls from the Friends of the Library. It fits the parameters. Same with Flashlight by Susan Choi. I only recently, for my Pile of Possibilities National Book Award, which by the way should be announced today, like maybe as I'm making this video, and this is not a video about the National Book Award, so nor do I really follow awards that much. Just interesting things to think about, ways to be introduced to books. That's for me. But yeah, I only recently hauled this. I did buy it from using credits at an independent bookstore, and I had a little bit of a moment because it's an ARC, and I didn't know, like, should one be buying ARCs? Anyway, I digress. Here in this stack, we have Junot Diaz, and I read The Brief and Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde in the last year. I liked it. There was a little what I would call sexism to be distracted by, or to forgive. That's the only way I can explain how I experience sexism in books. However, these are, like, I can see one of these. I have two other Junot Diaz's here, and I like him as an author, and I think that one of those could certainly make the Pile of Possibilities for December. We have Paulo Coelho, and I've definitely read Paulo Coelho before, and By the River PA that I sat down and wept, I did not like. I actually DNF'd like the very last little bit of it. So, because I've read him before, I think that he wouldn't fit the parameters. But Emma Donohue's The Wonder, which is right here, absolutely would fit. I read The Room over the summer. I liked it, and I, for some reason, this one has a strong possibility of being in a December TBR. Moving backwards down the next shelf, we have, and I'll try not to show the pictures of family members who have not given consent. We have a Layla Lalami right here, which is The Dream Hotel. I have another, The Moor's Dream. I have another Layla Lalami as a display book, as it has a motif, and I have some motif display books. But yeah, this one, I read The Secret Sun. I really liked it, Layla Lalami's style, and I was so ecstatic when I hauled The Dream Hotel, because it's a 2025 book, and it was a bit hyped when I found it, and that, for some reason, you can't, I'm human too, even though I'm not extra thrilled if something's hyped. It just felt like a super find, and I knew that I liked Layla Lalami, and I'm surprised I haven't got to it yet. So this one feels pretty strong. It fits within these parameters, and it feels like it's certainly on the Pile of Possibilities, just fitting in the parameters, but it feels like, yeah, it could end up in a TBR. Okay, next we have Jhumpa Lahiri, and I have these. I have actually 4 Jhumpa Lahiri books. Whereabouts, Dove Mi Trovo. I am buddy reading right now, and for that reason, Jhumpa won't be on a December TBR. I just finished Babel, The Arcane History by R.F. Kuang, and this is the only other book that I have, Yellowface, which I actually hauled from a little free library like Babel before Babel, and I'm surprised that I got to Babel first. But this feels like I won't do, just because I just like literally just did the book review on Babel. But it fits. It could be. It's a could be. Okay, we have Kristen Hanna the Great Alone. Last year I read The Women. I liked it enough. I thought for historical fiction she could tell a gripping story. There were some problems with how she built some characters, but I think I said in the video, I could have gone on extensively, or I could have just it distracted me a little, and then I appreciated. I did talk about The Women with several people because I was in Vietnam this summer. This could be, like, I feel like I'm avoiding this book just because it's a bit of a chunker, but I remember reading The Women in like 2 days, because she is quite a propulsive, that was a propulsive work. Anyway, The Great Alone, which I believe is Alaska, this book probably would be a really good candidate for this prompt that I'm doing now. So maybe on my December TBR, we'll see. Moshin Hamid. Oh my gosh. I just finished Exit West. I have 3 books of his. Exit West did not disappoint. I really liked it. I actually have a plan to read this one maybe in January. So Moshin Hamid likely won't be in the December TBR. That being said, I mean, it fits. It fits. Says as I read one book and I have several to read of this author. Oh Yassi. Yassi. I have both Homegoing and Transcendent Kingdom. One was a Little Free Library. I think one was Friends of the Library. I probably plan to read both of those in 2026. I mean, I've experienced a lot of enthusiasm about wanting to read these books and haven't gotten to it yet. So, I don't need to talk about it anymore because it doesn't fit. Had I read one of them, I would be reading the other one in December, but it doesn't fit my prompt. Okay. Here. Oh yeah. Jonathan Safran Foer. Is it extremely loud and incredibly close? Yeah. I had to pick that book up more than one time. I had to stay committed to it. It was one of those that I'm glad that I don't give up easily, even though sometimes that also frustrates me. It was when I read Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close. It was I was going to New York. It was on my TBR with New York as a setting, and I looked at it. I tried it. I think in a couple different mediums, and it just wasn't landing, but I knew I wanted to read the book. And then when I finally did, I really liked it. So Everything Illuminated is here. I have another plan for this book, I think. So I won't talk more about it, but it fits. It fits. Likewise, Roddy Doyle. Roddy Doyle was on, here we'll switch like this. Roddy Doyle was in my bookers. I read Patty Clark, just recently. And just like when I found Patty Clark, I also found all of these others within, like Roddy Doyle came into my scope of not like, ooh, there's this author. He's the chair of the Booker Judge panel this year, 2025. And then as soon as that name like came up, I found several Roddy Doyle books, both at thrift stores and in Little Free Libraries. So I hauled several, and I read Patty Clark, and I have mixed feelings about reading more, but I'm willing to always give at least a second chance to authors. So let's move along. I think because I read Patty Clark, so recently, I think that I won't read another Roddy Doyle in December, but again, this fits. It fits. So what if I do? All right, here I will remove the display book. We have Cormac McCarthy, which I read a Cormac book last year, but I read several Cormacs before that, so that doesn't fit. We also have Kazuo Ishiguro, and I'm still not sure because I thought it was Remains of the Day that I had read before, but in fact, it wasn't. It was Never Let Me Go, and that was my only like noticeable reread of the last year. Like I reread that book, so technically that Ishiguro would count. Because if the only Ishiguro book that I read before this last year is the same one I read again, I don't know. I don't see myself getting to that Ishiguro, but I have had it for quite a while and maybe I should. Next we have this Rebecca Makkai book, and it's I Have Some Questions for You. I read The Great Believers in June. I read it in June, yeah. And so I just found that one. It's a signed edition. Could be on my pile of possibilities. Same with this Anthony Mara. I can't for the life of me remember the name of the other Anthony Mara book that I read. It was signed. It was a signed copy as well. And I remember being surprised. It had to do with Hollywood. and Italy. And like, those are not necessarily like, I had read Beautiful Ruins. I had read several sort of books where Italy was the setting, and maybe even Italy and Hollywood. And I think that I was like, okay, I'm too saturated. Like, there's too many other things to explore. And Hollywood is not I'm not interested in celebrity at all. But I ended up really liking that book. And then when I took it, I actually took it back to donate to the Friends of the Library. This other Anthony Morrow was there. It's a constellation of vital phenomena. If I'm being really honest with myself, that would be one to put on the December TBR, because I've had it for a while. I've had it since I unhauled that other Anthony Morrow book, whose name I can't remember at all right now. Like, I'm trying so hard. So yeah, that would fit well in this this planned reading. We'll see. Okay. Oh yeah, Celesting. I found Little Fires Everywhere in a Little Free Library in January and read it and hauled it back into a Little Free Library, and then said, okay, if I find other Celestings, I'm going to read them. So these have been on my shelf for a while. And since it's been almost a year that I've been talking about reading another Celesting, so for sure, one of these would fit the parameters and probably be chosen. Joyce Carol Oates, I read We Were the Mulvaneys. I believe I read it and unhauled it before I took my trip to New York. So, like in late spring. And then these have been hauled very recently. So either of these would fit. If we come along here, I'll remove this. We have Anne Patchett. So I actually read, like, now I don't know, because I have to make the rules up as they go, right? I read 2 Anne Patchetts last year. I want to say State of Wonder, but is that the Geraldine Brooks book? Anyway, Something of Wonder. I swear that's what it was. They go to Brazil in it. And then I read Commonwealth. And I found Commonwealth fine, but I wasn't that enthralling. And I was hoping that, I think The Dutch House or Tom Lake would be better, because if it were just those 2 books, I might kind of be like, and I have a memory of reading Bel Canto, and I've seen it in Little Free Libraries and be like, no, I'm pretty sure I read that, and I'm not really doing rereads. And now I kind of regret not getting it. Anyway, I want to read The Dutch House in December. I think that's all I have to say about that. The Overstory by Richard Powers is here as well. I read is Bewilderment. This was a father and son relationship. I do like those intimate, like, single parent, single child kind of relationships. They intrigue me. And so I liked Bewilderment. I liked Richard Powers' writing a lot. I traded the Ray Bradbury book for it in a Little Free Library. I only just hauled the Overstory. It's a chunker. Like, it's a lot. It's a thick book. I think that his writing can get me through it, but I just don't see myself choosing that in December. Anyway, I'm not making the choices now. There's no need to blab about that. Also on the shelf, I have Alice Munro. And I read Dear Life, the short stories, found it in my neighborhood Little Free Library. Really liked it. I understand that she may or may not have been a good person, as per the recounting of her daughter. But this is another set of short stories, and I really, really liked her last short stories. And I so far haven't talked about any short stories. So there's that could happen. We have a Murakami here, but I actually read 2 more. I read 2 Murakami books. So if I'm going to read an Anne Patchett, maybe I could also consider Murakami in this pile of possibilities. I read Norwegian Wood, found it in a neighborhood Little Free Library, and I read Kafka at the Shore, which I believe I thrifted, but I saw it several times in different exchanges at hostels this summer. This is the Wind Up Bird Chronicle, and I don't know anything about it other than it might fit in these arbitrary rules of this, like what I might read. This second book it would be the third in this case. Another book of an author new to me in the last year. This Wonder Valley by Ivy Pachoda definitely would fit, and this feels like it's also checking the boxes of a book that I've had for a while, an author that I read for a while. I found Seeing Her Down in a little free library in a neighborhood. No, I actually think it was at the $5 or $10, if I'm recalling. 10 for $5, sorry. And I really, really liked it. So Wonder Valley has also, it's annotated with sticky notes. Anyway, it fits. That's all I have to say. Likewise, I have these two Sally Rooney's. I read Intermezzo. It was a library. I checked it out digitally from the library and read it kind of when it was at its hype. And I don't do that often. And what I said, I believe in that review video, was I can absolutely see and respect the craft of Sally Rooney. I don't know much about these other two books, and I'm not sure if I like them or not. But anyway, even now, I don't have to contemplate too much. I just have to say, okay, clearly, if I'm doing read another book by an author new to you, or that you've read in the last year, Sally Rooney fits, and I have two options. All right, we have to come down to my last shelf, so I'll sit on the floor and kind of look like this. Let me get rid of display books. Okay, so what have we got here? We have Jesmyn Ward. Now, I've only just read Sing Unburied Sing. So what does that mean? That means that one of those other Jesmyn Wards, probably just because of the proximity of just reading Sing Unburied Sing, I really liked it. And I highly anticipate liking the rest of Jesmyn Ward. She might even be one of those, like Jhumpa Lahiri is one of those too, that maybe I won't unhaul everything. I'm doubting my value system here of that it's 100% unhaul. It might be worth keeping her collection. But it might also be worth making sure that she's out there in the world. Anyway, I don't see myself reading another Jesmyn Ward this winter, but it fits the parameter. In this stack, this is all, none of those fit. Those are all new to me authors. Well, not Tom Wolfe, but I haven't read Tom Wolfe for a very long time. But William Stegner. I was pleasantly surprised with how much I liked the William Stegner book. And I believe I read him because I was reading Pulitzers. Yeah, that's how I read my first William Stegner. And how many books am I going to talk about today and not actually remember the name of? I'm just looking in here to see if there's a list of his catalog, because I would recognize it. But indeed, no. I recently saw, this is a really good conditioned Penguin paperback, but I saw an edition that I really liked recently in a little free library, and I was like, am I that person that I'm going to trade one up and get a different edition? Maybe I've done it before. And then I decided, no, I wanted to stick with this because it's the same edition of the other book that I read, which was a bit more well-loved than this one. I think if I could get to it, Crossing to Safety actually has a lot of fall vibes. So I almost kind of want to put it on like beginning of December, end of November, if I can get it there. We'll see. Okay. Nothing else on that on this little stack. And nothing here that I've read in the last year. So let's, I guess I can talk about this. It's just kind of sitting on the side because I pulled it out for a reason. Yeah, I read Visit from the Goon Squad, which was, again, I think it was in the Pulitzers that I was reading. And this is one of her newer works, The Keep. I didn't really like Visit from the Goon Squad. I didn't not like it, but I feel like there was a lot of trauma triggers for me, maybe, and I just kept falling out of the story and not being able to get back in, and getting kind of confused, like where am I and who am I in this story? it's probably something I could revisit, or The Keep would be a good second book by an author just to give a chance. This I got at the Friends of the Library, and it was when I was being pretty diligent about, I'll just get my 2 free books and maybe one other one so that I spend a little money when I go in there. And I got this like late spring. Oh, now I see something. But let me just go down so let me show you this stack. Allie Smith, I've only just recently read Autumn because it bumped into my fall TBR. I actually had Hotel World before. I found it, I believe, at a little free library, and I wanted to read it in June and didn't. So if I were to read another Allie Smith, it would be this one because it's already kind of been bumped off of a TBR. I have yet to read Swing Time. It is coming up this week. But if I do read Swing Time, then this White Teeth Zadie Smith, which is also a really recent haul, would qualify. But I have the same thing to say that I've said about others, which is, I don't know, I feel like both the haul and the read are so close that I would want to put some distance just because of all of how much. But now, one for sure. I mean, I almost have to say for sure. I love The Reader by Bernard Schlink got me back into reading. Like, I can't say single-handedly, but between The Reader and Sing Her Down by Ivy Pachoda, those 2 books like reignited my passion for reading fiction. And the fact that I still have the other novel that I've since hauled by Ivy Pachoda and The Weekend. This one I got at the Friends of the Library shop, and I was like ecstatic to find it. And I mean, everything is less than a year, but almost a year later, it's still sitting here. This almost feels like it has to be read in December. Like, I feel obliged to read this one. I have 2 more Ruthie Thorpe's only recently I don't think it was National Book Award. I think it was Kirkus that I read Margot's Got Money Problems. And I liked it all right. I can see the allure of Ruthie Thorpe, and I feel a little bit like Ruthie Thorpe, like I felt like Tyler Jenkins Reid's. But I have these 2 other books. This one was in the 10 books for $5, and this one I got at the like fancy smancy Friends of the Library store. So I paid quite a bit for this one. Well, quite a bit more than 50 cents. We'll say that. I could see myself maybe reading this in December as my second Ruthie Thorpe book. I was iffy about the Knockout Queen anyway, but it does fit a prompt that I might tackle next year. So there's that. I did read an Amy Tan in this last year. It was Saving Fish from Drowning, but I, of course, have read Amy Tan back in the 90s. So this, The Valley of Amazement, I just won't get to. Elizabeth Strout, I read Olive Kitteridge over the summer, and actually right now on my TBR is my second Elizabeth Strout book. So, yeah. So she's not going to be on a December TBR. Other than that, I have some like collections in my front room, which I won't show. I'm just going to go over this main bookshelf. And of those, there's Michael Chabon. I read the Yiddish Policemen's Union over the summer, and I would quite like to get to Moonglow specifically. However, Moonglow. It's World War II, though, and I just so saturated. So we have to see if I read any other World War II focus books. But I have the adventures, the amazing adventures of. Man, I'm not doing good today remembering the names of books. In any case, I have several other Michael Chabon books that I could get to be my second read of his in December as part of the pile of possibilities. And then Percival Everett. Yeah. I have Percival Everett with, in a pretty little stack, which I want to get to. I recently held Dr. No, but I want to get to Telephone, and it would be my second Percival Everett book. And I could definitely see myself prioritizing that in a pile of possibilities too. So going through all of these, I think I feel like my priorities has to be The Weekend by Bernard Schluck and SLS Ing. Like, I feel like both of those I've been having around for quite a while. And then I have a lot of other options to choose from. It won't be the only prompt because it never is. And I'll do like winter vibes and maybe, yeah, like I have some other things that I want to get to as well. So it won't be my only pile of possibilities, but this gives me a lot of like, it helps me sort of sort through and make sure that if I'm like, especially if I have more books on the shelf by the author, like what happened with Tyler Jenkins Reid. And I'm like, you know what, this is fine, but there are other things I know that I would want to read more and other people will want to read these more and I can get them out. So this is kind of an act. Like, for instance, the Anne Patchett, I think I want to get to that too, because if I had, like I said, if I had just read Commonwealth and not had more, I might have stopped there. I mean, Anne's fine. I just, again, compared to all the other things that I have to read, like authors I haven't even tried yet. Yeah, so that's where I'm at. Oh yeah, and then of course the last thing I'll say is in December I need to finish. There's a few, not many, but a few of the 10 till the end that I absolutely will prioritize, which aren't. I'm not talking about here. That they're already on the that might basically what I'll call my TBR card. It's not as a little tiny shelf, but it's not like what I'm actively reading or have committed myself to read. I have a triage going on, but okay, yeah, that's my bookshelf tour and my sort of stream of consciousness dialogue around what I think I'll stay pretty committed to, like as a pie of possibilities. Which of them I pick, if I pick 5 or 6 or 10 or 2, I don't know, but to kind of like narrow down how would I choose books in December. December's right around the corner, so we shall see.